In the movie Dead Poets Society, there's a scene where the character Knox Overstreet reads a poem to his crush, and um, she's embarrassed and says nothing because he went up to her while she was in school. And Knox goes back to his all boys school, and his friends ask him how it went. Ask him, what did she say? And he says nothing. And in disbelief, they question him and they say, like, well, what did she say? Because his body language is not reflecting that of a rejection. He is calm. He is at peace. He looks to be in bliss with tranquility flowing out of him. And so they question him further. And they say, no, no, like, what did she say? Like, what do you mean? And he says, nothing. But I did it. And that is what we need to hold on to. The fact that we did it. Maybe it went south. Maybe it didn't go as planned. Maybe looking back, you now regret it. You now think, I shouldn't have done that. Whatever it may be. But you cannot let the result have so much power over the initial decision, the initial choice, because we obviously don't have foresight. We can't see what is going to happen. All we can do is make the best decision we can with the information provided. And if you go out, take the risk, have courage, and do something, even if nothing happens, even if the worst case scenario happens, you can sit there and smile and say, let out a deep breath and say, but I did it. Because, there's a quote, we won't regret, in 20 years, we won't regret the things we did, but the things we didn't do. All the things we thought we were going to do, all the things we told ourselves we were going to do that we never ended up doing, those are the things we will regret. But the things that we do, things that we did, they are what create us. They are what make us who we are. And they are the building blocks for us, good or bad. Because truly, there's never a negative situation is never wholly negative. There's always a positive in it. And there's always a bright side. There's always a lesson to be learned. There's always growth to be had. And you will always be able to see and seize that growth if you do not waste your time complaining, ruminating, and lamenting on the fact that it didn't go according to plan. You just need to tell yourself God had a better plan. This is what God willed, and He willed it for my betterment. He willed it for my improvement. He willed it so I could actually get what I needed, not what I want. And if you can align your will to want what you need, then you never have a need to be upset or sad or anything of what happens, because you've completely aligned your will with the will of God, and you've learned to want what happens to happen. And Marcus Aurelius tells us there is no greater harmony than in that. And truly there isn't. In each and every moment, if you can want what happens to happen, are you not completely at peace? I was recently reading St. Augustine and his essay on the happy life, and it was very good and very stoic and very, very profound. But I feel like whenever I read like the early Christian fathers, I guess Augustine's like the only one I've read, but I feel like there's just so much stoicism in his works. And to me, that's just a beautiful sign that Stoicism may not have the same beliefs as theologically as um, Christianity, but I think ethically they are almost one and the same, if not the same. They're just, one's a philosophy and one's a religion, but the philosophy of Christianity is almost Stoic, if not completely and utterly. But Augustine was talking about in The Happy Life how no one can be happy who needs something. He said, essentially, if you need something, then you are not happy. You are not content, which is trite, which is obvious, but it can be profound to hear it from an ancient, from a church father, from um, one of the fathers of philosophy and of theology, and it really puts it into sight for you when you haven't contemplated or heard that for a while, maybe that it really is just my need that I don't have enough. That is really all that is disrupting me. That is really all that is messing me up. So we need to want what happens to happen and align ourselves with the will of God. And also, we can't we can't bring we can't bring to the past our present understanding. I think so often we imagine the past as if we had all the information we have at present. We reflect on a decision we made 6 months ago and we say, how did I do that? Did I not take this, that, and the other thing into account? But then when you really think about it, you say, how could I have taken that into account? How could I have known that was a possibility? How I didn't have the foresight back then. I had no reason to think that that was a possibility or that was a chance. And even if I did, I wouldn't have been able to elaborate on it as much as I am now due to my foresight and present experience that I have. We need to realize where we were when the decision was made, the thoughts we had, the intentions we had, and then at the end of the day just say, but I did it. You know, but I did it, so there's no reason to sit here and wish it otherwise, for one. And for two, like Knox means it in Dead Poet Society, you just don't care, or you don't let the outcome affect the initial intention and decision. You realize how proud you are of yourself for taking the leap, taking the risk that so many would be too afraid to do, that so many would never do, that you yourself have so many times shied away from, and you finally did it. And yeah, maybe the outcome wasn't as you thought. Maybe it didn't go over like as well as you were expecting, but you did it. And you should be able to find deep fulfillment, enjoyment, and pride, for lack of a better term, in that, in the doing, in the I did it. Because so many people don't. So many people don't do the things they wish that they did. So many people don't take the leaps, take the risks that are scary. So many people don't try to become the best version of themselves because it's the hardest thing to do. So many people don't listen to that voice that tells them to do the hard thing, to take the risk, to quit their job, to, fill in the blank, whatever hard decision you've been prolonging or you prolonged for a long time but finally did. Congratulate yourself for that, because that's huge. And because no one else is going to congratulate you for it. No one else is going to know the strife and the anguish that you went through in and day out, thinking about doing it and then thinking about the consequences, and then thinking about how you should just play it safe, and then thinking about how you'd rather die than play it safe, and go back and forth in that argument with yourself hundreds of times. So take this moment to congratulate yourself and remind yourself that you did it, and that maybe it didn't work out according to what you thought. Maybe it's not going as good as you expected it to. Maybe it's all going to crap, and part of you regrets your decision. Just imagine if you didn't make the decision. Just imagine if you didn't do it. Yeah, maybe you're sitting here regretting that you did it, but imagine how much more the regret would be if you didn't do it, and how much longer it would stay with you, and how much more time it would have eaten up in just contemplation and what ifs of, if I do it, maybe this, maybe that. But now you know. Now it's over. Now you can move on. Now it can just be ticked off from the list of one of the things that you will regret one day because you never tried, you never did it. But I think you get the point. Just remember. If you've never seen Dead Poet Society, I highly recommend it. It is probably one of my favorite movies ever. And that scene is just beautiful. And it comes through, carpe diem. They say seize the day. I think it's in Greek. And through carpe diem, they take they take a bunch of risk because they realize they'd rather say, "But I did it," than, "I wonder how it would have worked out."